scab for the bosses, don't listen to their lies. Us poor folks haven't got a chance unless we organize. Which side are you on? Which side are you
That's so cute. We are recording, and I
Oh.
caught that, and that was very
That's
wholesome.
precious.
Hello, this is Remarks, the podcast where the co-hosts aren't both hungover.
Not at all.
Drinking.
Never would dream to do that.
Drinking refreshers from Starbucks because it's the only thing that gives us life.
It does. Listen, I'm not promoting any corporate anything ever, but I will say it is the number one thing that will cure a hangover, and it works every time. But you have to sub the water for black tea. That's the only way to do it.
That is
and it will
essential
cure
for
you.
sure.
I'm maybe like a quarter of the way through this, and I do feel better than I was driving here. So,
Yeah, can't complain. But yeah, so it's week 2 of Colt Month. Talking about Colts, talking about how bad they are.
Talking about some sad stuff.
Exactly. Oh, and I guess I should say my name is Taylor.
Oh yeah. Hi, I'm Phoebe. We're
And
doing great.
Yeah, no, we're great. And this is our podcast.
It's called Remarks. Did we already say that?
I think so, but it's fine. Also, I love your shirt. It has
Thank you.
Bambi on it.
Yeah, I just got it. His hair is like a fuzzy velvet.
It's very nice. It looks very comfy too.
It's so comfy. It's really, really soft, and it's brand new, so I like haven't washed it yet. So the fuzz is like really fuzzy.
pristine fuzz.
Yeah, that like quality fuzz action.
Absolutely.
It's really nice. It's comforting me in my time of need.
Giving share.
It's giving chair.
Anyway, you're gonna start us off, I believe. Do you wanna?
Where are
hit the
we?
Screaming goat.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I was actually thinking that because this is gonna be a scream heavy episode.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't get old.
Right.
It doesn't get
It
old.
literally never does. And it's just, it never gets old, especially because it's just like so fucking weird that your company was like, hey guys, here's a goat.
It's so weird too because then like 2 weeks later they sent us like this box of like it was supposed to be like have a movie night and had like popcorn and like a koozie, like a drink koozie, and then like I don't know, some like Swedish fish in it. And that was like I understand that one. That was like more normal. I was
yeah,
like, okay,
that makes sense.
That's normal, but like to follow up like just a screaming goat toy, like so weird.
Yeah, it's wild.
But anyway,
let's get into it. So last week I covered the newer-ish, like homeless/drug rehabilitation cult called the Other Side Academy, which is getting its gorilla grip on SLC. And during that, it's really digging its claws into the throats of the people that don't have homes who live here.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
And apparently the mayor.
Yeah, fucking bitch.
The mayor is sucking
Fucking bitch.
the dick of the Other Side Academy.
Yeah, I fucking hate her. Anyway. We'll add her to the list.
Yeah.
Aaron.
What's the law against inciting violence?
I think you just have to say it's all alleged.
Yeah, allegedly we hate her
Yeah.
and potentially don't want her to
Allegedly.
be at least mayor, potentially alive. I'm just
Stay
joking.
tuned. This is all a joke. It is a joke. We are joking.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. So, right. So I mentioned the cult Synanon a lot last week because it kind of influenced what the Other Side Academy structure is, or it's basically the exact same fucking thing. But anyway, so this episode I'm going to cover Synanon, how it came to be, why it sucked so much ass, and how it continues to influence other drug rehabilitation cults going forward. So I'm going to cover the history of Synanon first, and then I'm going to get into its evil practices.
Love it.
Great. So, Synanon was first founded as a drug rehabilitation program in Santa Monica in 1958. It was founded by Charles E. Diedrich. Diedrich was born in Ohio in 1913. His dad died in a car accident when he was 4. And I found from a different source that the dad was also an alcoholic. I don't know if that's true, but I saw it on one source. Anyway, and maybe that the car accident was caused by, like, drunk driving or something.
I see.
So dad dies when he's 4. His youngest brother died from influenza when he was 8. And then at age 12, this is when his alcoholism, like, really took off. So pretty much from 12 on, he was just, like, really struggled with alcoholism. Which is fucking rough. That 12 is a young as fuck.
And I mean, to have your dad and your brother both die.
Yeah, I mean, you're going through a lot.
I understand. And yeah, that is rough.
Yeah. So, due to his alcoholism, he had several failed marriages, and eventually he became involved with Alcoholics Anonymous. He started to love the podium that he had at AA, and he would literally speak for, like, hours if he could. He said, quote, "That's all I did. I was the first one to speak, and I'd speak all night unless they stopped me."
Wild.
That's normal.
I feel like I've heard that, like, Alcoholics Anonymous has, like, kind of that I don't know if it's a problem necessarily, but it, you know, you get a bunch of, like, people who are in this vulnerable state together, you know, and it's like, I guess I can see why like so many issues can arise and, like, weird cultish kind of things, because it's all these vulnerable people. One person is, like, really charismatic. They kind of, like, rise to the top.
Well, it gives you, like, a pedestal to just, like, fucking talk as much as you want.
Yeah, that too.
So Charles was a great storyteller, and he actually started to gain a bit of a following in AA because of this. He ends up participating in an experimental LSD procedure, which was led by Dr. Keith Dittman at UCLA, and he was testing using LSD to cure alcoholism. I guess.
I mean, sounds like what we're kind of testing now with, like, MDMA.
That's true, yeah, and, like, they do ketamine and stuff. Yeah, that's true. Never mind.
I don't think
You're right.
It's, like, necessarily. Maybe it was weird. I don't know.
I feel like I'm just always sussed out about anything that happened, like, in, like, the early days using LSD. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
I'm sure it was probably chill, though. But anyway, so through this LSD trip, he experienced a breakthrough where he concluded that he understood the world, that bad and good were the same, and that it was up to him to fill a hole that AA was missing, which was a rehabilitation for drug addicts. Okay, so we're already off to an awesome start. I cannot think of a single time that LSD mixed with narcissism and cults has gone wrong.
Ever. No, I'm pretty sure...
Cough. Charles Manson. I also just find it a bit ironic that on a drug-induced trip he realized he was supposed to be the one to cure drug addicts.
That is very funny, yeah. But it was a medically sanctioned drug trip.
Very true, very true.
So it makes it better?
It makes
it different?
Okay. So Charles starts preaching his new philosophies at AA meetings, and this, like, garnered him, like, an actual following that moved with him into a store in Venice in 1958. And this began the Tender Loving Care Club. Okay.
The TLCC.
Exactly. Fucking nerds. Dorks. So in this nasty little storefront is where the game that I mentioned last episode was born. This same game that inspires games Other Side Academy to this day. So during this original version of the game, players were allowed to say anything they wanted to the chosen member. The only thing that was off limits was the threat of violence. Oh, good.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's good. Seems abusive to me.
Yeah, but at least they draw the line somewhere, right? So after a while, more and more members start joining, most of which were drug addicts rather than alcoholics. And with his following growing, this is where Charles really birthed Synanon, and he started calling this communal living and seminar sessions by the name Synanon. The name Synanon came from the compounding of the suffix syn, meaning togetherness, and anon, which of course means anonymous. Also, Charles Diedrich coined the term, "Today is the first day of the rest of your life," which I'm sure that you may or may not have heard before.
I'm sure you've heard it before. I feel like that's like plastered in like every like white suburban family's like living room, you know?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that and then Live, Laugh, Love is underneath.
It's like Johnson family established 2004. Today is the first day of the rest of your life.
Oh my god, it's true. And it's like on like distressed wood.
Yeah.
With this new growth in members, Synanon needed a larger commune space and therefore more funds to get it. So they started a business selling promotional items, and Synanon eventually started earning $10 million per year.
Jesus.
Yeah. These Synanon enterprises ran gas stations, they made pottery, they had apartment buildings, and other income businesses without having to pay workers or taxes.
Sounds a little like what the Other Side Academy is doing.
Interesting, Taylor. Funny how
Wow.
you should say that. Yeah. It sounds eerily similar. Charles Diedrich also bought and sold real estate. So, just a real solid guy. So in 1962, Charles Diedrich moved Synanon into this abandoned National Guard building on a beach in Santa Monica. And during this time, Charles Diedrich was actually arrested for opening a rehab clinic without a license. He chooses to serve his jail time rather than moving the quote-unquote clinic. Mm-hmm. And this basically turns him into a martyr. And this is like where shit really gets fucked with Synanon, as if it wasn't already. Governor Edmund Brown Jr. actually signed a Save Synanon bill, which allowed Synanon to operate outside of health licensing laws.
Oh, jeez.
Mm-hmm.
That's
cool. Good and cool.
Yeah, and I mean, and from the little I know about Synanon, like, because I haven't done too deep of a dive, but I've read some things. Mm-hmm. It's like they were like the first and kind of the only like drug rehabilitation program that was like really doing like, especially like with hard drugs, like rehabilitation in that area.
Right, yeah.
So it's like a lot of people just like with like judges and stuff, they didn't know what else to do.
Exactly.
They're like, we'll either send these people to prison or send them to Synanon.
Yep.
So it's like, I mean, I guess I get why like people needed it, but they kind of overlooked a lot of real bad stuff just because they were like, wow, this is different.
Yeah, this is a new thing. Let's send people to this cult. So, also the medical board was supposed to develop rules for Synanon to follow, but that never happened.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, great. Awesome. After Diedrich's imprisonment, this gave him like all of this public attention. It painted him as this man who's like willing to do anything to help people heal from addiction. And all these affluent people in California start sending donations to Synanon. And then these Hollywood elites start attending and giving money to Synanon. We've got big Hollywood names like Robert Wagner, Leonard Nimoy, and Ben Gazzara.
Oh shit, Spock was...
Fucking Spock was involved with Synanon.
That's insane.
Yeah. And they would come and participate in sessions of the game.
Holy shit. So there's a realistic chance there are people that are alive today that got like their fucking ass roasted by Spock.
Straight up, yes. Who got
fucking
emotionally
insane.
tortured by fucking Spock. Which I feel like just adds a whole other layer to it. Like, I would be so fucking upset.
That'd be, like they just bring in some like Hollywood asshole who, like, you know, they probably didn't like have people like criticize Leonard
Nimoy.
Nimoy, yeah, like I'm sure he was just the one
probably
doing the criticizing.
Yeah, because he's Leonard Nimoy.
Exactly. So like he just like gets to come in and tell a bunch of people they suck and then just leave.
And then peace.
Damn.
Yeah. Life magazine even did like this huge spread on Synanon. It was 14 pages long, and a congressman from California called Synanon the quote miracle on the beach. Baby, no.
Baby, sweetheart, no.
Sweet baby, no. And Columbia Pictures made a movie even.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I'm telling you, like this shit is so crazy because it was huge and like everyone was chill with it.
And that's what's so interesting is I feel like, you know, and we've kind of talked about this off air, but like a lot of the cults, when people think about like, ooh, these wild cults, you know, it's like Jonestown, Heaven's Gate, like all these ones. But like this was just like people were just like, yeah, This is kind of, I mean, I'm sure some people saw that it was a cult, but they were like, it seems fine.
Yeah, like
Seems
this
it's
was
cool.
like a huge, normal, just ingrained part. I mean, they were around for a long fucking time, and literally, I'll get to it in a minute actually, but they owned like a shit ton of property. Right, so Life magazine does the thing, Columbia Pictures makes a movie. Because of this spread and because of this movie, the popularity of Synanon explodes, and so did the monetary donations. And so around 1964, Synanon started building its first quote-unquote city in Marin County. Yeah, like, oh my god. And so many people, even without drug or alcohol addiction, start joining Synanon under the impression that if they have this drastic, they'll have this drastic life improvement by joining this cult, because it's been made out to be this fucking amazing thing.
Yeah, I was going to say, it probably started to appeal to, like, people who just didn't want to, like, I guess, live in society anymore.
Yeah,
you know? Like,
yeah,
they wanted,
for sure.
like, do this community living kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Which, again, is, like, tight when there's not, like, one specific person calling all the shots, you know?
And when it's not evil.
When they're not buying up a bunch of, like, real estate.
Exactly. And psychologically torturing people.
Yeah.
So these non-addict members could join if they agreed to transfer all of their assets to Synanon. There it is. These members were quickly inducted and brainwashed by playing the game, which the details of I'm going to get into a little bit later. When Synanon starts to become more official, around the time when the name Synanon had been introduced, it was being proposed as a 2-year rehabilitation program. Sound familiar? Anyone? But eventually, around 1967, Diedrich realizes that his proposed 2-year plan was not panning out, and that he wanted a longer devotion from his followers. So he announced that the concept of graduation was not accurate, and that addicts could never actually truly recover. He claimed that if his followers were to stay with him forever, that they would be able to build a utopian society.
I mean, I feel like that's that right there should have just been a big red flag. That would be like, you're never gonna recover, and you should live and give me all your time and labor for the rest of your life. Yeah, that's normal. I
just want to point out again, you know, why I'm really going into this is because of this other side shit. I'm just afraid to see what it's going to turn into, because they're calling it a 2-year thing now, but I'm like, what happens in 2 years?
Yeah,
like, what are we going to see?
So easily just be like, actually, you're not ready to graduate.
Exactly.
So how about we do another 2 years and then we'll check back then.
Exactly. So in 1967 is really when Charles goes bonkers bananas, and he takes Synanon to the next level. Synanon buys Club Casa del Mar, which is this huge, beautiful beachside hotel. Then this becomes their largest rehab facility. The cult forces out the members of Club Casa who were like already staying there, and this agitates the locals and causes an attempted lawsuit towards Synanon that was likely one of the most beneficial things that could have happened to Synanon. Yeah. The city of Santa Monica claimed that it was the rightful owner of this beachfront and sent out police officers with bulldozers. The cops start knocking over the facilities, cabanas and shit that Synanon had set up, and they start arresting members of Synanon. Charles Diedrich uses this violent push by police to once again appear as a martyr, and he holds a press conference saying that the city of Santa Monica had, quote, fallen into the hands of mad dogs, and that, quote, Synanon would sue them all. With Charles' popularity and how bad the bulldozing had made the city look, Santa Monica had no choice but to surrender. And this surrender, this surrender makes Synanon go Super Saiyan.
Well, yeah, I mean, I can imagine if you have that much money, you probably have, like, pretty top-notch lawyers, right?
They were making $10 million a fucking year.
$10 million a year in, like, what, 1960s money?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
I feel like that's a lot.
It is a lot. And then on top of that, they had donations and all this other fucking shit, you know?
Yeah.
So because of this, they no longer had to abide by zoning laws. They got huge increase in donations, and Synanon soon becomes the largest property owner in all of Santa Monica.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
I know. They also had facilities in Oakland, and the state of California donated a block of land in San Francisco, which I was like, oh, I wonder...
like a
if
block
we saw
of,
that.
yeah, there's a block of land that's like technically owned by Synanon.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think so anymore.
Probably not anymore, but that's also
crazy.
What the fuck? what is that like a symbolic, like you own this fucking
I don't
weird
know.
spot of
I don't know.
It's like an adopt a highway thing. I don't know.
This highway cleaned up by Synanon. So at one point, Synanon had started to become so commonplace that young people facing juvenile detention were actually ordered to join Synanon by California Colts rather than go to juvenile detention.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
what the fuck?
Yeah, it's fucked up. And that's the thing is, I understand like why somebody in that position would be like, yeah, I'll go to the fucking weird utopian cult society if it beats going to like prison or whatever, or like a juvenile facility, like
exactly,
which I'm sure were probably basically just like prisons at that time.
I mean, yeah, they were.
Yeah.
Which again, doesn't that sound familiar?
Yeah.
So to move this story along, I'll have to get into the practices of Synanon, because what ultimately led to the end of Synanon was a days-long version of the game, which led to members carrying out violent acts. Taylor, you know what won't carry out violent acts?
Well, what? Enlighten me.
It is product and service.
Product and the service that we...
The single one that we have.
I mean... Again,
hopefully.
Finger guns, tell your friends to listen to us, and we'll get different ads.
More ads. Please. And fucking rate us on Apple Podcasts.
Please.
Anyway. Service.
We're back. I'm talking about a time that I drank way too many strawberries and threw up in someone's backyard, and it was good. Again, really one of my brightest moments.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Just with the hungover vibes today.
Yeah, to fit it in. Yeah, vomiting's really my favorite thing.
Love it.
I love it. You know what? It's not vomit. Synanon. What?
I mean, it's kind of
it's
vomit inducing.
Yeah, it makes me want to. I was up literally until like 1:30 doing the notes for this the other night, and I literally and I'm about to get into like all of this shit and how they played the game and stuff. I was like, am I feeling the effects of that? Like I was like, ugh, like I felt crazy.
Yeah. This stuff it'll drive you a little insane.
Yeah, it's fucked. All right, so let's get into some of the practices of Synanon. So when you first become a member of Synanon, you understand that you will be quitting your addiction cold turkey. You'll be doing this with no trained professionals, no doctors, and no nurses present. Sound familiar?
Sounds familiar, yeah.
Anyone?
And again, I'm sure it was a great idea then, which is why the Other Side Academy is doing the exact same thing, right?
Yeah, no, it obviously went really great. Really great. So Synanon first introduced the idea of cutting off contact with the outside world by telling members that this cutoff period would only be for the first 90 days of their stay at the facility. I'm gonna hiccup. However, as the cult developed and Diedrich realized the power he could have by creating lifelong members, he not only changed the structure of the program from 2 years to a lifelong commitment, but he extended the cutoff from the outside world to a full-time thing as well. Again, so familiar.
Quick question. Did he, so if there were people that were, in the program, did they have the option to, leave still if they wanted to, or was it well, you signed up for 2 years, now you're in here forever?
I mean, I think the leaving was more of, an escape thing. You couldn't just, peace out.
Yeah, you had, I don't know, yeah.
You had to, it was, a whole thing.
Yeah. I imagine they probably, maybe didn't tell you couldn't leave, but,
yeah,
implied that.
Heavily implied. Yeah. So when Synanon is still in its baby stages, members would live on the commune, but they could work off-site. But this soon changed when Synanon developed its own jobs. And so members would live and work on the commune. These people were full-time Synanon 24/7 with absolutely no outside influences at all. I'm sure that was really good and healthy.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, again, traditionally not having access to, like, your family is only been good for people.
Very beneficial. When babies started being born at Synanon, they would be taken from their parents and be raised in the hatchery.
The what?
The hatchery.
All right.
Oh, I hate it. Oh, God.
I'm screaming on the inside.
I'm pissing and shitting. Children attended the Synanon school and learned the practices of Synanon and how to live their best life under Synanon's rules. And when mothers asked to see their kids too often, they were called head suckers. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
You know what? Yeah, you want to see your child? Fuck you.
You fucking head sucker.
Head sucker, yeah. Why does that sound like a slur?
It really does. Yeah. Oh my God, it sounds like a gay slur.
Yeah.
Wow, the amount of stuttering I just did.
Gay slur. Sorry, I wasn't making fun of you. I just.
Oh, you can.
No, I would never.
Oh God! All right.
New slur alert.
New slur just dropped.
Oh my.
What is happening? There's this classic cult technique of cutting you off from your past and removing any sense of individuality. The goal was to make you forget your life before Synanon and make you unable to imagine a life without Synanon. A part of the game was to attack members' former lives, helping to convince them that any life they had without Synanon was a bad one. As part of this shedding of past lives, women had to shave their heads. And eventually men shaved their heads too. Yeah. Like, it was a whole shaved head thing at the end of this. And married couples were broken up and then forced to take new partners.
Oh.
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that's not, like, weird for cults, but, I mean, it's weird. I guess it's just interesting. I don't know.
It was like you're letting go of your past life by breaking up your marriage and having a new
Wouldn't it be weird?
husband.
Okay, so wouldn't it be weird to be, like, living in this weird commune, and then you're, like, you've been married for, let's say, like, 10 years.
Yeah.
And then you just, like, will walk by your ex-wife now with, like, her new husband.
Her new cult husband.
Or, like, yeah, whatever, however the fuck they arranged it. Like, that just sounds strange.
Yeah, it would be very awkward. Many men were forced to have vasectomies, and several pregnant women were even forced to have abortions.
Not cool.
Bad. Diedrich preached something called act as if, which meant that basically don't question anything that Synanon is telling you to do. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Basically it's like they said, like, thinking is what got you into the position that you are, like, with your drug addiction or whatever.
Ooh. And
so don't think and just do what Synanon says.
Yeah, that's the kind of I fucking hate that kind of shit, because it's like, it's just with anything too. It's like, yeah, I mean, again, being addicted to hard drugs isn't a good thing, and there is a certain amount of, like, you have to kind of, like, leave that lifestyle behind when you do go through recovery. At least from what I've heard, I've never been addicted to hard drugs.
Right.
But to be like, everything you were doing before is bad, and now we're gonna tell you what to do. That just, again, it's that kind of, like, lacking of nuance that, like,
right,
cults use, fucking the alt-right uses, literally, which, again, the alt-right is basically a cult. That they use to just control you, and it's stupid and also dumb.
Yeah. Fun little tidbit. George Lucas needed a group of people with shaved heads for his movie THX 1138. Never seen it or heard of it, but whatever. And he actually hired people from Synanon.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. And then also...
Sorry,
no,
I was
going
to say, do you think that George Lucas and Elon Musk and Grimes picked the name for their things from the same place?
Yeah, there's just, like, a douchebag name generator.
And George Lucas was like, I'll name my movie that.
THX 1138. And then Elon Musk was like, that's a really cute name.
Like, wow, that's kind of...
I love that.
It's kind of quirky, kind of futuristic. It's giving chair, for sure.
It's giving chair. Also, Robert Altman, who made the movie Split, also hired shavehead people from Synanon.
I mean, I guess if you need a whole bunch of people with shaved heads.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. The movie's called California Split.
Oh, I mean, now that changes everything.
Yeah,
right?
no, you're right. You know what? He was right, actually. So, this all brings us to, of course, the game. The game was a group attack therapy session. So during these times, during these games, I wrote that stupid. My bad. Sorry, guys. These games consisted of a member confessing all of their secrets, speaking about the darkest parts of their lives, and then other members would emotionally berate the speaker, humiliate them, and they were encouraged to not hold back at all. The object of the game was to uncover the members' innermost weaknesses. Mm-hmm. Good. Normal.
And I guess, so a little clarification, and yes. I think I probably said this more in my episode or my part last week, but yeah, like, because like in these games everybody would go in a circle and they would take turns being like the one that would be emotionally berated.
Yeah.
Whereas like at the Elan school it was just one person and everybody would gang up on them
right
at, like,
yeah,
whatever general assembly they did.
Right, exactly. Yeah,
which again, still not great.
Both bad. All bad.
One may be worse, but I'm not gonna make that judgment call.
When the game was over, members would comfort each other and act friendly and civilly towards each other and then return to their communal living. And this style of breakdown and build-up is a really common, very dangerous cult tactic to weaken the members' resolve. And then you will get this, like, sense of community with like the build up after. You believe that you're building community because even as you're confessing your darkest secrets and weaknesses to those around you, even though this is being forced out due to emotional operation, and then after hours of being broken down, the circle turns into this haven of comfort. And so it tricks your brain into believing that the other members are truly there for you.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say, like, I feel like I've had like fights and things with, like, whether it's like past partners or even just like my family, where it's like we kind of like get mad at each other and someone cries and then afterwards you feel like kind of like it's like cathartic in a way. I feel like it's probably similar. Exactly,
yeah. And this also creates a false sense of community because members of Synanon and other cults that use this tactic become convinced that the members of this cult are the people that truly know them the best because they've confessed all their secrets and weaknesses to these people. And at this point, members have also been cut off from any friends or family outside of the cult. And so, like, yeah, I mean, you're kind of right. Like,
they do kind of know you the best, yeah. And, yeah, it's weird, too, because it's like this, like, simultaneous brainwashing that like people are being brainwashed but also brainwashing other people.
Right, exactly.
It's almost like the leader like facilitated this weird system where people are just brainwashing each other to like listen to him more.
No, it's exactly crazy. It's so wild, and it's almost like, I don't want to say that like these cult leaders are smart, but they're certainly like clever. They know how shit works.
Yeah, like they're smart, but they're super evil and bad. Like,
so that's kind of the context of the game, and this is where the days-long version of the game comes in. Charles Diedrich, inspired by his own LSD trip, I almost keep saying LDS.
Wrong cult, Phoebe.
Yeah, right. Exactly. This was inspired by his own LSD trip and the discovery he had made by playing the game that the breakdown and buildup of people's emotions can lead to extreme vulnerability and manipulation, hence his ability to convince women to get abortions and men to get vasectomies. When all of this was coupled with extreme sleep deprivation, he could make people do anything he wanted. During this 3-day game ceremony, Diedrich led members through an individual breakdown and then group build-ups. He felt this, along with sleep deprivation, would allow the members to experience something similar to his LSD trip without even needing the LSD. Yikes.
Wow.
Charles Diedrich said, quote, "At the end of this rainbow, there will be a pot of gold. Through dissipation or long hours of activity without very much sleep, we hope to bring about in you a conscious state of inebriation. We want you to get loaded without the acid. You will learn more about yourself, your fellow man, the world, the nature of reality in one weekend than you would in 4 years. Let your ego go. Let things happen to you. It's a feeling of closeness to each other we are after, the death of the ego, a reference point for the rest of your life. You may change your value system, notions about your life, and viewpoints about people. It will produce a new breed of human beings with greatly expanded potentials. If you do your best, you can't fail.
Whack.
No.
If someone came up to me and was like, "Hey, do you want to know how you can get loaded without doing any drugs?" I'd be like, no, actually, I
No.
really don't, because that sounds first of all awful.
Yeah.
And then second off, what if you don't want to trip on LSD?
Yeah, exactly. The whole point of it is fucking being a drug rehab.
Yeah.
And now it's like, oh, let's give you the feeling of drugs, which it's like, that's still not good. Like, the reason why people do drugs is because of the feeling of it. So then it's like, you're just going to get people addicted to not sleeping and being emotionally berated? I don't know.
Yeah, it's weird. It kind of reminds me, this is a weird tangent.
Go.
But, when I was in high school, they had like this like anti-drug assembly where like there's like this group that came out and they were like dancing, and they would like have students from the high school like come on stage and dance, and like they sang like Yellow Submarine by the Beatles, and everybody was like dancing and stuff.
Arguably the most druggy song you've ever heard.
For sure, weird. And then at the very end they were like, you know what just happened there? You got a natural high.
No,
you don't need drugs.
I got a natural high from watching my peers dance and sing Yellow Submarine.
Yeah, it was the most bizarre thing that's ever happened that I've ever seen. And I don't know, I can't say that really convinced me to like not do drugs, because I don't know that I've ever been in a situation like that since.
Yeah,
so.
I feel like that would make me want to be high in that moment.
Like, please get me out of here.
Yeah.
Yeah, weird story, but
I
just came
love
to my
it.
mind.
The fucking like dare stuff is so weird and stupid. We had like a dare program one time. I don't know if it was dare, but it was like something like that, and it was in my junior high.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy came and was giving a presentation on like meth faces and like whatever.
Wow.
And he was talking about heroin and where people, why he told us, I don't know. He was like talking about where people inject heroin, and he's like, oh, it's like in like that, crook of your elbow thing. And he's like, if you slap your arm right there, it'll make that vein wake up. You can see. And so this entire audience of fucking middle schoolers is like slapping their arm,
just like seeing if it works.
And I'm like, this is maybe not good.
It's so bizarre. And well, I'll end this tangent in a second, but like it's wild because I feel like with DARE and a lot of drug programs, you can tell that they were like written and facilitated by people who have not done drugs.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like, because again, that kind of shit, like, why would you say
that?
middle schoolers how you to hit your vein to like bring? It's just
like, maybe that's what you should not be telling us.
It's just so it's so weird. I mean, and just the whole approach to like how they did drug education in like the early 2000s to like
stupid.
2010s is whack. But
it is whack.
I'm sure it's not much better now. I don't know what they teach in schools, but
yikes. All right. And tangent. So,
scene.
On a Friday at 7 p.m., the longest version of the game ever played commenced. Dietrich had chosen a special group of 50 members he called the Trippers, gathered in the lobby of the club in Casa del Mar. A large group of other members approached, dressed in long white robes and silk scarves. As I tell you this story, imagine that you are one of the 50 Trippers.
Okay, I'm ready. I'm closing my eyes. I'm visualizing it.
Get into it. You are led down a long candlelit corridor by one of the robed members. Incense is burning. You are taken to a locker room filled with cots. There's name cards on each cot, and one is assigned to you. You are instructed to strip and put on white robes. If you're wearing a watch, it was taken from you. If you are a woman, you are ordered to take off all makeup and jewelry. This is a symbol of you shedding your past self. You are then gathered in another room. You and the other 49 Trippers are sat in comfortable green armchairs. The guides take you through the game, telling you to confess all of your past sins, tell the stories of your drug addiction, gang affiliations, rapes, beatings, stealing, any sin you may have committed in your past life. These confessions and berations go on for hours. You have been awake for hours now. Sinking into the comfort of the armchair, you are not allowed to fall asleep. You realize you feel more and more comfortable confessing everything about yourself. While you and the other 49 members, high on sleep deprivation and emotional turmoil, confess your life stories, aides are noting down pertinent information and relaying it to other members who are called the conductors, to be used as ammunition later. Now, one of the yellow-scarfed members informs you that you have not actually been selected because you're special. No, it's because you are a resistor, and you believe that you are so special that you know the direction Synanon is to go. For this, you should be punished. Charles says, you are part of the dummies that hold Synanon back. Maybe, one day, we will just put you dingbats against the wall and wash them off and bring them back into the human race. We have now reached the witching hour. 2 women in black and white robes place a Ouija board on a table. This board begins to spell out messages of self-reliance, but self-reliance was interpreted as the ability to make choices, and the best way to end loneliness and suffering was through trusting in Synanon. They would adopt the Synanon family, said the board, or go to the 5th circle in Dante's hell, where tormented souls are terrorized and torn. Finally, one of the other 49 trippers breaks and begins to cry. You begin to cry. Soon all of you are crying. You and all the trippers embrace, and you feel an unbelievable sense of euphoria and love. You understand that this is your family. One of the yellow-scarfed leaders informs you that this is your last chance to ask for forgiveness and give yourself over to Synanon. The yellow-scarfed members begin retelling some of the secrets and stories you had confessed earlier. How long ago was that? You can't remember. Everyone begins to attack you for these confessions. You start to see shimmering, figures, floating shapes. You're hallucinating. Members around you fall to the floor in a fetal position. Some are crying for their mothers. Some are sobbing. Some wailing. You ask for forgiveness. You say you will give yourself over to Synanon. When the other trippers ask for love, you embrace them. You feel a deep, euphoric connection with these people. You feel as though you've gone through a beautiful transformation. At 8 a.m. on Monday morning, you head back down the corridor, hand in hand with your other trippers. You hear the sound of band music coming from the ballroom. When you enter, you see all the other members of Synanon, cheering, clapping. They rush to you and embrace you. You've now been awake for 72 full hours. You all join together in the hoopla, the traditional dance of Synanon. You knew all you had to do was surrender to Synanon. You feel a sense of peace. You feel an unbreakable allegiance to the members around you, and especially to Charles Diedrich.
Yo.
How do you feel?
I feel well, bad, first of all.
Yeah,
but I mean, can't say that I've stayed up for 72 hours straight. But I have stayed up, for a while.
Yeah.
Like I've been sleep deprived before.
Yeah.
And yeah, that sounds awful.
Mm-hmm.
But I can see how it would be cathartic because
Right.
you're going through all this stress, and then like the moment you're like, oh, I surrender it all to Synanon, then everybody's like nice to you, and you're like, wow, that's all I had to do was just give
Exactly.
my allegiance to some dude.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think
Scary.
about like when our friends are doing things and we start talking about, talking to each other like really emotionally, and usually we're up late and we like, how it is, like we are usually sleep deprived, and you just start saying shit like,
Yeah.
or like late nights at a sleepover and everybody starts getting all emotional or whatever, like, that shit happens. And I definitely have felt that, where it's like you're really tired and you just start like saying all this stuff and it feels good. But this is the evil version of that.
Yeah. It's the
And like, of course you are going to like feel this crazy sense of connection with these people. Anyway, so that's evil, and that is something that they would do like periodically with new members or people who hadn't been through this like intense version of the game before, and this is really how they would completely break somebody.
I mean, yeah, sounds like it would break you.
Yeah. 3 full days of being up and having people tell you suck, and then having people tell you that you're awesome.
Yeah.
And then you dance the hoopla.
Yeah.
Don't know what that is.
Doesn't sound healthy.
Yeah, not at all. All right. So, let's get into the fall of Synanon. As of hooray, the best part. As of 1974, the crumbling of Synanon began. Eventually, authorities began to catch on to Synanon's lifelong therapy practices, and they realized that this did not match up with traditional therapeutic practices. Yeah, guys.
I would say so.
A lot of other fucking shit.
Fucking Einstein's over here being like, wow, you're telling me you're not supposed to stay in therapy your entire life? Or like
Weird.
at least rehab. You're like,
Yeah.
people go to therapy for a long time, and that's great, but you're not supposed to like be in a rehab
Yeah.
facility your entire
And
life.
live on a commune and only work on that commune and only talk to other people that live on that commune.
Wow.
Maybe that's bad.
Maybe that's bad.
So, attorney Paul Morantz began to work on a case against Synanon and alerted the health department to Synanon's practices. To combat this, Diedrich declared that Synanon was a church and was therefore exempt from taxes and furthermore exempt from questioning. After this, Charles formed the Imperial Marines. They trained rigorously and they became the violent army that would defend Synanon fearlessly.
Damn, so he was basically just trying to make like his own little country, his own little like territory.
Yeah, exactly. It's like that fucking one in Texas.
The Waco?
Yes.
The like Waco thing?
Yeah. Yes. The Waco thing. So this group of Imperial Marines, as he called them, viciously attacked more than 40 people. Public beatings on enemies of Synanon spanned all across America, and members were taught that if they were caught on one of these missions and arrested, they were to never admit that they were involved with Synanon at all. Charles Diedrich warned people, he said this publicly, that people should not mess with Synanon because the organization could not control its own members. And he threatened that, quote-unquote, bombs would go off in homes of critics of Synanon.
That sounds like a threat to me.
Yeah, sounds pretty threatening. Eventually, an underground railroad of sorts was formed to free the children of Synanon. So this is kind of where it gets into, like, people being able to leave, kind of not being able to, but the escaping kind of thing. Because, again, this had gone on for so long that there was literally kids birthed into this.
Yeah, and especially with kids who, like, they didn't ask to be in this Synanon cult,
Yeah.
you know? Like,
Yeah. This underground railroad was led by Alvin Gambonini, who was then beaten by a Synanon mob in front of his family.
Awful.
Yeah.
But good on him for trying to help people.
Fucking rad ass
Fucking
dude.
Hero right there.
Yeah. More and more stories of Synanon's misconduct begin popping up, and families of Synanon members start to file legal cases against Synanon. Mm-hmm. So our boy, Paul Morantz, steps into the picture again, and he enters into an 8-year legal battle with Synanon.
Wow.
Yeah. On September 21st, 2008, the Synanon Army, Imperial Marines, attempted to murder an ex-member by clubbing him over the head. I don't mean to laugh. It's just so insane.
They're just, they're unhinged.
Yeah. By this time, like 2008, Synanon had largely disbanded, but the diehards were still hopelessly devoted. Mm-hmm. The Imperial Marines became aware of Paul Morantz's crusade against Synanon, which was something that Charles Diedrich was calling the Holy War.
Jesus.
Yeah, like, dude, fucking calm down.
Again, dork behavior.
Dork alert. The Imperial Marines caught and caged a 4-foot rattlesnake. This is the rattlesnake thing Taylor was fucking talking about. They remove its rattle, and then they placed it in Paul Morantz's mailbox. When Paul opens his mailbox the next morning, he was bitten and subsequently hospitalized for 11 days.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Much respect to our boy Paul.
Absolutely.
But that's, first off, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. Also, it's kind of also the plot of Snakes on a Plane, that weird 2006
oh my God,
movie.
You're right.
Because they're like trying to assassinate someone, and they're like, we've tried everything, but we're gonna put a bunch of fucking snakes on this plane.
We've tried everything except snakes.
Hear me out. Snakes on a plane.
On a plane. Hear me out. Put a rattlesnake in this guy's fucking mailbox. Rattlesnakes on a mailbox. Yeah, which, tangent again, but when that movie came out, they did this really weird, like, marketing thing where they would, like, call, for the snakes on a plane thing, they would call people's houses, and it would be, who is the fucking guy?
Samuel L. Jackson?
Yes.
Yeah.
Samuel L. Jackson's voice, and it's like, you better watch Snakes on a Plane, or I'm gonna kill you, or something like that. It was fucking insane, and my sister answered the phone, and she was terrified.
That's what the fuck?
I don't know.
I did not know about that.
Yeah.
I just know that movie is crazy, but like,
yes.
Holy shit.
Yeah, they really took it to the next level.
They were really trying to like bank off that like internet like weird viral marketing kind of stuff, the like Blair Witch Project and stuff.
Right,
Like,
exactly.
What if we call everybody and threaten them?
Yeah, what if
Samuel L. Jackson.
What if we threaten people's lives instead of they have to fucking watch this movie?
So
Never
weird.
seen it.
Never
seen it.
Feel like maybe I saw like part of it when my dad was watching it, like when I was a kid, but like he'd probably like it would like get to a bad part and he'd be like, go upstairs or something.
Group Snakes on a Plane watch?
I think it's important we do. Comment if you want us to live stream us watching Snakes on a Plane.
That'd actually be fucking funny.
That'd be very funny.
Yeah, we can get our Twitch stream going.
Exactly.
It's just us watching Snakes on a Plane.
With just us being like, this is stupid.
This is the stupidest shit I've ever seen. So, when Paul Morantz is bitten by the rattlesnake, he yells out, "Call the police! Call an ambulance! I've been bitten by a rattlesnake! It's Synanon! Synanon got me!"
Yeah, I mean, he was absolutely correct.
He was
about
correct.
All those
He
things.
knew. Facts all the way through. So Synanon had been officially forced to shut down in 1991 when they were put on trial under the pretense that organizations would lose their tax exemption when charged with an act of terrorism. Which I'm just like, maybe they should have been put on trial for the terrorism. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's just I mean, this whole thing, I'm just like, how the fuck did they get away with this for so long?
No, I know. Like... I know. It's unreal. So Synanon loses the suit because they were unable to pay the fine, which I don't... It seems insane. I'm like, how much was this fine? Because as far as I was concerned, they were fucking raking in the dough. But anyway.
Maybe they had less money because it was like getting
maybe it
later on. I don't know.
Trickled down. So they had to call it quits, and 1991 they were officially shut down. Soon after the rattlesnake incident, the remaining members were arrested, and Synanon faded into the background as a painful mark on California's history.
Very painful. I like that pain. One of the many scars of like California's history. There's like Synanon. There's like Ronald Reagan. There's
California has a whack time, especially in the serial killer front.
Yeah,
he's like chock full of serial killers, especially in the
like,
70s.
Florida kind of gets like the bad rep for having a bunch of like crazy people or whatever.
Yeah.
But like California's right up there with them.
Absolutely. So, as my final little statement here, as I've discussed, the impact of Synanon lives on, almost like a horror movie villain, and it instates itself in new drug rehabilitation programs. Members of Synanon went on to fund different drug treatment centers of their own, such as Tum Est, I don't know, in Venice, California, Delancey Street in San Francisco, Amity in Tucson, Phoenix House in New York City, and Daytop Village in Queens. And, of course, the Other Side Academy.
And the Elan School.
That's right. So, yeah, that's the end of my story, but this is why, like, we just have to be so fucking aware of anything, but like, with all of these like drug rehabilitation things and why they can be so fucked, because it's like, it's just like Pokemon evolves into like a different fucking thing, which is how so many cults work.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it's like, and I don't even want to say, because again, from what I've read and from, the story you just told, it doesn't sound like the leader, what was his name?
Charles Diedrich.
Yeah, Diedrich. He was like setting out to like start a cult initially. Like it sounds like he did want to like help people to try to
Yeah.
rehabilitate them from drugs. He might have been
Yeah.
misguided, but it doesn't sound like he was like, I'm gonna be a fucking king of my own country. Like,
I think he for sure had like a narcissistic
mm-hmm.
personality thing, and I feel like when he was in AA and he realized like, oh, I can fucking talk for as long as I want and people like me and are listening to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I feel like it really, like, I feel like he became aware of his own influence when he started that tender loving care or whatever fucking thing.
Yeah.
And I think at that point was when he was like, oh, I can basically do whatever I want with these people.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe that's true. Maybe it was just from the AA. I don't know.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, be aware of what's happening.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And fucking, I mean, I don't know what to do, but like as I was doing this research about Synanon, I was just like, fucking the Other Side Academy is literally just this. And it's like, it's here. And the fucking mayor is like paying for it
Mm-hmm.
and using it as her little special thing. And I'm just like, I don't know. I also was 1 a.m, so I was like tired, but I'm like, I was having like a breakdown because I was just like, what the fuck do we do? Like, we can't, I don't know how to stop this, but she is literally like sanctioning a fucking cult to ruin the lives of homeless people. And it's a cult. It is a cult.
It's a
like,
cult.
it literally is a member of Synanon fucking filtered away, created their own thing, and it's the exact same shit.
Yeah, it's awful. I mean, I don't know. There's like the basic answers for like what you can do. I mean, obviously, be involved in activism. Reach out to your senators and try to use your voice that way. But I know that those things can only go so far.
Right.
So, I mean, really, it's just like agitate.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Maybe we could organize a protest or something.
That'd be cool, or at least get try to get it on the radar of someone who is already involved.
True. Yeah.
That's just us spitballing ideas live. But
comment what you think we should do
Yeah.
to stop the Other Side Academy, aka Synanon Point 2.
I think we should take a little break skis.
Yes.
And then
for sure.
I'll be back and tell you about a different cult.
Wahoo.
Wahoo. All right, we're back. Fuck work.
Fuck jobs. Fuck a job.
Hate jobs. So yeah, I'm gonna take it over with my little piece today. I think it's interesting because I feel like with both of us as well, like we don't claim to be experts on anything in particular, like
I don't know shit about shit.
yeah, like we do our research and usually we'll tell like a pretty concise story. And then if you want to like do more research, you can look into it. And of course, there's times where we get things wrong, and that's just gonna happen with anything, right?
True.
Like we're not perfect. Nobody is.
Yeah.
And I will say this one, and kind of my next one too, though, I feel is like one of the things that I would probably be most versed in because I've done a lot of research in this area. So I'm very excited to share.
I'm excited to hear. I don't know anything about this.
Yeah, it's pretty wild, but let's get into it. So I'm talking about it's not necessarily a cult in the traditional sense, but it is the cult of Christian identity. And it is kind of fucked up. Basically what it is it's the belief that only Germanic peoples like Anglo-Saxon, Nordic, and Aryans are descendants of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, making them the true Israelites.
Oh, no.
Do you see where this is going?
Yeah.
Right out of the gate?
Wow.
It obviously doesn't have like a main congregation or denomination, but it is believed by... I wrote down fringe groups. It's actually more common than you would think, but usually it'll be like a specific church that kind of takes on these beliefs, or it's specific individuals that like get together. It's believed by fringe groups of white people that white people are God's chosen people, and Jews are the offspring of Cain and are cursed. So good stuff.
Oh no.
Yeah. Obviously, many white supremacist gangs and prison gangs kind of adopted this belief, thinking of like the Aryan Brotherhood or whatever. Mm-hmm. It's interesting because like a lot of times they'll either think that they were offsprings of like Cain or potentially Satan as well, which is interesting. Like
Jesus Christ.
Again, then this has no like no connection to like what the Bible actually says, but they think that like Eve had offspring with like the serpent, which was Satan, and then that's what bred like the actual Israelites or like Jewish people, and that also extends to like people of other colors as well and nations.
Right.
This is probably a no-brainer, but the Southern Poverty Law Center considers them an anti-Semitic, racist, and white supremacist group.
Yeah.
So a hate group.
Very much so.
Probably pretty normal.
Pretty
Jumping into the history of it here, prior to the 1920s and the 30s, there was an ideology known as British Israelism, which believed that the nation of Britain, or white people, were the true Israelites. But they were what's called philo-Semitic, which basically means that they respected Jews and didn't think that they were necessarily like cursed, which again still isn't great.
Yeah.
But I guess is better. They respected the lineage of Jewish people and didn't necessarily think that they were cursed. They respected their culture and thought they did play a role in God's chosen people. But America, being America, saw around the 1920s and 30s the ideology come across the pond and mutate into the anti-Semitic beliefs that are more common today. Mm-hmm. The main difference is in Britain, it was believed that Jews came from the tribe of Judah, and in America, it was taught that Jews came from Satan, as I was saying.
Right.
So, like, again, this isn't a Bible history podcast by any means, but there was 10 tribes. Maybe it should, new direction.
Yeah.
There was like, I believe 12 tribes that were split up for like the Israelites, and this British Israelism believed that the Jews were just from one of those tribes and white British people were from the other ones. Mm-hmm. Wesley Swift is thought to be the leader of this transitional period through the 30s and around the 40s. It is believed he may have been a Klan member, which no surprise there.
Yeah.
And was the West Coast representative for the Christian Nationalist Crusade, which, if you know anything about crusades, they're pretty good.
Have always been awesome.
Always been good, no notes.
Yeah. Nothing to say about crusades. Keep them coming.
Let's do another.
It's been too long since our last crusade.
Exactly. There's not a single document that expresses what exactly Christian identity believes, which is actually where a lot of the problem is, because there's not any kind of doctrine, which means people can kind of interpret it however they want. The core belief obviously being Christian, the actual chosen people of God are white people,
Right.
And then you can kind of branch off of that in any way you want, being well, if we're the chosen people, then God hates this group and this group because we're the ones that are actually chosen. And there's not any kind of set you might be chosen, but to other people are fine, or whatever.
Yeah.
Even that some of the offshoots of it won't necessarily be violent or want to kill people of other cultures, but there's nothing telling other ones that it shouldn't be like that.
Right, exactly.
So it's pretty whack. Pretty bad. Some congregations preach a more violent message than others, and that is what makes it hard to know kind of what we're up against in this ideology. Sure. And then oftentimes I think, too, it's kind of been co-opted by just general white supremacist groups being well, look at this. How are you going to deny you're God's chosen people or whatever? Mm-hmm. Wesley Swift formulated the doctrine that non-Caucasian people have no souls and were not able to be saved or go to heaven.
Yikes.
And to bring back crowd favorite blank check, when you when you say that a certain group of people are, again, literally like fundamentally threatening your way of life or like your position as like the chosen people of God, you got that blank check to basically do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Or believe whatever you want, you know?
Right. Well, and if you're saying that they have like no souls, I feel like it makes you, just because souls, Christians fucking love souls. Like, I feel like it like makes you be like, oh, well then they're like not really people, so it doesn't matter.
Exactly. They don't
what
actually
happens to
have
them.
like a conscience or whatever it is. I don't know. Again, I feel like they just say that, but no Christians really like know the concept of like soul, like what a soul is. I don't know.
Yeah.
But exactly, yeah. Most believers of Christian identity want to bring about racial purity in the United States, but do not trust the government because it's ran by, quote, heavy air quotes, the Jews. Because of this, they turn to violence to bring about the change. Many won't say this outright, though. They won't say it outright due to accusations of like them being a terrorist group.
Right.
There have been, different groups throughout that have had some violent things that have happened, and then, they're like, oh, it's a terrorist group. So then the other ones are like, well, that's not what we want, even though, I mean, can you really believe that without getting into that territory?
Right.
I don't know. They also believe that many diseases and STDs are caused by race mixers, which is just as gross as it sounds, as they call them, because other races are considered unclean. So, absolutely awful.
Just a lot of really classic racism in here.
Yeah, it's classic racist shit.
Yeah.
Very bad. Also, they hate homosexuality just as much as they hate race mixing, because that's not God's way, right?
Right.
And I think that's something that really harkens back to, just really, you can connect it throughout a lot of history, but, one of the things that like Nazi Germany specifically outlawed was the mixing of Jewish people and, again, Nordic people for like marriage or sexual relations. And so it goes all the way back to that. They don't want these mixed children. Again, it's bad to talk about. It's hard.
yucky.
It's gross, but again, I feel like it's important stuff to talk about.
It's a necessary conversation.
Because it's something that has kind of gotten more popular than people think, especially on the fringes of the internet.
Right.
Now, these beliefs spread and mutated like a wildfire. A big name was James Ellison, who was a good friend of Timothy McVeigh. Timothy McVeigh being the Oklahoma bombing culprit, I guess is the right word.
Yeah.
Terrorist. McVeigh was found with pages from the Turner Diaries after the attack. Oh yeah. Which the Turner Diaries, which opens up a whole other like end of this, and that's what's kind of difficult to talk about when you are dissecting this like weird right-wing ecosystem that has like kind of bred on the internet. Is there's so many different branches of it, but the Turner Diaries, they were written by a neo-Nazi, and it's this like kind of like dystopian novel about like this race war that breaks out, and it follows like somebody I think by the name of Turner, and like he goes through this like, again, it's like his diaries in this like race war that's happening, and again it's been linked to like multiple terrorist attacks. It's like the white supremacist Bible basically.
Yeah.
And it's really bad.
Didn't our boy Robert Evans talk about that?
Oh yeah, they've Robert Evans has talked about, he has like an audiobook that I would very much suggest.
Sorry, I poked the mic. I think I listened to it, Taylor.
Yeah.
I think you sent it to me.
It's called The War on Everyone.
Yes.
And it's really good about connecting like just this entire web of like how the alt-right has kind of been like brewing on the internet since like even like the 1980s and stuff. Like they've had like very targeted attacks to try to get people to come to their side via the internet, because it's kind of hard to have a Nazi meeting in real life, you know?
Yeah.
But this is kind of where it's all kind of ties back together. I feel like again, kind of to go back to what I was talking about, one of the things I feel like I'm a very closest to being an expert, I still wouldn't call myself an expert, is the radicalization of young men into like the incel movement online. I've done a lot of research in that area. And it's my belief and many others that Christian identity neo-Nazis specifically attack young, predominantly white men over the internet to bring them over to this ideology. And one of the first ways that starts is through like inceldom, because you know, I think that anybody who's on the internet and is complaining about how they haven't had luck with either sexual encounters or romance or anything, it's really easy to manipulate that kind of frustration and kind of turn it into, well, this is because of feminism.
Yep.
And then, you know, you get people hating feminism. You then get them going down the road of, well, feminism is because of liberalism in our country. And then liberalism comes from the left. And look at all of these other groups of people. You know, we've seen with just the protests last year, like a huge outcry for Black Lives Matter and things like that. And these, I almost want to say they're kind of like neo-Nazi predators on the internet, are like, well, they get all of this, you know, they have all of this attention, but like, who's standing up for you? You little oppressed soul, because either, again, you can't get laid or whatever it is. And that's just, again, it's like a gateway into this like alt-right community online, and it's really
for sure
damaging.
Well, and it's just like with like Hitler or like the lavender scare that you talked about that one time. It's like any time that you can have like something to blame all of your problems on, like with incels, it's like, oh, well, it's not your fault women don't want to sleep with you. It's because women fucking suck. Or
they're
like
all feminists, and they yeah. And it goes into the same thing, because, you know, you'll see on like incel forums a lot, there's big talk of like how women, you know, all of like again, it's gross to say it out loud, just know I'm quoting things I've seen online. All of the white women will be like going for black guys or whatever it is. And so there's very much this like racial undertone or racial hatred that's under there.
And that's the thing with like a lot of this stuff. Like you were saying, I mean, it's just like you can kind of, it like branches and branches and branches, and you can just like kind of start sneaking in like this other stuff, because it's like, oh, at first incel is just like you hate women or whatever, and then it's like, oh, but hey, guess what, dude? Also, you could also hate black people. Like, guess what? This is a part of this as well. And then it just slowly like branches and branches and branches from there until you're just like a fucking horrible white supremacist piece of shit.
Exactly. And that's like, you know, there's been multiple like YouTubers and podcasters who have talked about like the alt-right pipeline and the whole idea of being red-pilled and how you just like go down that rabbit hole.
Right.
And I feel very much like inceldom is one of the many starting points for that.
For sure.
Because again, I don't think that most people log online and go on 4chan and are like, you know what? I read a post. I'm a Nazi now.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
You know, but like I've heard similar stories with like, especially people in like the furry community, online. They have like, you know, I feel like society culture has kind of been rough to furries.
Truth.
And so, you know, a lot of their like interactions will be online, and when you're in kind of a vulnerable state where you're like, I'm into something, society doesn't really like, doesn't understand it, and you're specifically like a white teenage to 20-year-old man, like you can be roped into that kind of stuff really easily. And one of the cool things is the furry movement has like seen a really strong like backlash to that. Like they've kind of like banded together to like be like, no, we don't want you like radicalizing our group of people.
To the furries, man.
Furries are tight.
Absolutely. This is a pro furry podcast.
Absolutely. Furry rights, I've said it once, I'll say it again.
I said it 100 times.
And again, I'm kind of just soapboxing here, but I think
No,
it
I love
also, a lot of this stuff, it's been brewing for a long time. There was a really big explosion with like Gamergate that happened.
Yeah, oh my god.
And especially as far as like inceldom and moving into like the kind of the hatred of like the liberal media, as they call it. Because I think that, and like, this is again kind of me just speculating as someone who's kind of seen it for a while. I think that when you are in this position where like, oh, maybe I don't have like the same kind of like fight against oppression as like Black Lives Matter or the women's liberation movement and things like that. You kind of latch on to things that you do have, like what you can call your identity, and I think that for a lot of people on the internet, video games was a big part of that.
Right.
And when people began to criticize that, there was a really big backlash, which caused this whole Gamergate.
Yeah.
And it radicalized a lot of people to that side, and it's really bad. But that's just kind of like the way I kind of like laid it out there, because again, if you are in this kind of vulnerable state where you are on, you're heavily online, you kind of feel like you don't have a place or like a struggle in a community, it's really easy for these people to be like, did you know that you're actually God's chosen people?
Right, yeah.
And, and again, it may
You're
not be
special.
that. Exactly. It may not be that like overt of them saying that, but it's that slow build up to like, well, you're actually special. You actually have this community of people, and we all think the same, and we all hate Black people and want like a racially pure America and whatever it is. And these are the reasons why you're not accepted in society or whatever it is.
Right.
So yeah, it's just really dangerous, and I think that it all kind of ties together, but one of the big things it ties back to is this like Christian identity belief that I think is a cult.
Yep, 100%.
It's wild.
Yeah. Well, and it's just like, you have these cults like Synanon where you can look at it and it's like, oh, look, like there's a guy and they're all living on this fucking commune and they're shaving their heads and wearing robes and whatever. Even though Synanon existed for a very long time without people thinking it was a cult. But you also have these more fringy cults that now are able to exist in this different way because of like online things. And it's like, it's this bigger, almost more freeform thing, but it is a cult. Like, it's destructive beliefs bringing people together and using vulnerability against you,
Yeah, no, absolutely. I did look up here, and the Turner Diaries were written by William Luther Pierce under the pseudonym of Andrew MacDonald. And just a little synopsis here. It depicts a violent revolution in the United States which leads to the overthrow of the federal government, a nuclear war, and ultimately a race war, which leads to the systematic extermination of non-whites. So it's kind of just like a Nazi dystopian... I mean, it's a Nazi dystopian fiction novel that, like, neo-Nazis have been fucking catching their nut to for years at this point.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's fucking insane. And,
yikes.
And I know, like, William Luther Pierce, the guy who wrote it, he was, he tried to get involved in the John Birch Society, which is, like, that could be a whole episode on its own, but it's, like, this really, like, alt-right fringe anti-communist group that kind of popped up around like the 50s and 60s, I believe, so kind of Red Scare era. But he actually left the John Birch Society because he didn't think they fought against like race mixing as much as they should.
Oh boy.
And it's like, if the John Birch Society, like famously right-wing anti-communist group, is like too liberal for you,
yeah,
like,
there's something probably wrong with you.
Yeah, it's insane. But yeah, that's kind of what I prepared there. There's so much more you can kind of like spread out and spread into that, but
sure,
trying to keep it kind of concise to like just the cult of Christian identity.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just wild. And again, it's one of those things where it's like there's probably a lot of people who maybe don't call themselves Christian, like they don't say that they have that ideology of Christian identity, but like they kind of believe in those kinds of things, or
right,
even just like the spreading of the belief that like America is like somehow sanctioned by God to be like this world superpower capitalist free market like utopia or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like even that just kind of leaks into just that whole ideology of like we're the chosen ones.
Right,
blah,
exactly. Which, I mean, you and I have discussed this a lot, but you could go on to argue that like having a really staunch like belief in America, and you know, just the way America like raises and creates people in and of itself is like a cult.
Yeah, no, I would agree.
Or at least uses a very cult-like structure.
Well, I mean, if you're having to pledge your allegiance to a flag, you know,
straight up,
it's,
like that feels pretty fucking culty to me.
Mm-hmm. And again, I feel like it's maybe no surprise. I mean, we live in a country that was founded on slavery and founded on white supremacy,
Truth.
Founded on a patriarchy. Like, it's common to see these kinds of things being prevalent, but I feel like it's really caught wind online, and I feel like now, currently, the year of our Lord 2021, we're seeing more people address like the online radicalization, and like you know, there's been books written about it and like how crazy that kind of stuff is, and you know, more articles coming out because people are kind of starting to realize. But like for a long time, you know, nobody really knew what was going on,
right,
with the weird Pepe memes that all the fucking Nazis were sharing around.
No, yeah, exactly.
Which rip our boy Pepe. They didn't have to do him like that.
They just like randomly take over whatever fucking shit they want to.
Yeah, it's, again, I feel like it's just because they're a bunch of fucking dorks, dude.
True.
That like are like, well, we're gonna have secret codes that we talk in, so no one, you know, because not to nerd out too hard on everybody here on the podcast,
Please
but
do.
Like a big thing in like those Nazi circles is they'll talk about their power level, like, and how you shouldn't show your power level or like too early, basically meaning like you shouldn't express how many Nazi beliefs you have too fast, or you'll like scare off the normies, if you will.
You will.
Yeah, you will. But that's like that, and that's the thing, is they're very like intentional with how they do it. Like they know that they have to bait people in first.
Yes,
like,
and that's a fucking classic ass cult practice.
It's a fucking cult
like
thing.
That is literally one of like the things of what makes you a cult, is the idea of like introducing just a little something at the beginning, especially something that's like, oh, this is gonna help you and blah 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 blah, and then slowly as you go on, all of this other fucking shit comes out and you're like, oh no, or you're like, oh yeah, and I like this. Yeah, just like fucking Scientology, it's like you don't learn about what's his name, Zensis or whatever until like you're too deep into it, and you're like, oh.
The same with the LDS church. You don't learn you're going to get a planet until you're fucking married in the temple and you're balls deep in it.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. It's like you've been convinced of all these other things. What's adding on a little white supremacy, right?
Right.
But, yeah, that's, it's wild. That's all I have.
Beautiful. Love it.
But yeah, we can move into some closing statements.
All right.
Closing thoughts.
Yeah.
Pluggables.
My closing statement is I am tired. Just kidding. I'm doing great, everyone. Closing statements. I mean, I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times, but it's just, I just keep thinking about this Other Side Academy and knowing exactly where it fucking comes from, Synanon, which literally, like, ended up with people getting beat up by a fucking army and having a lot of people, like, mentally destroyed. You know, I'm just like, what are we going to see this develop into? And it worries me, and it's upsetting.
I can understand. Yeah, and I guess as far as closing statements on my end is like, if you know anybody who is saying weird stuff, call in, check on them.
Yeah.
And especially with like the pandemic, I feel like a lot of people have been spending way too much time online. So yeah, check in on your friends and make sure you're keeping yourself safe. If you are any of the groups that a neo-Nazi incel might target, please be safe.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, moving into pluggables.
Pluggable time.
So I run the Twitter account. It's at Remarks Pod on Twitter.
Yes. And I run our Instagram and our TikTok. Our Instagram is at Remarks Podcast. The TikTok is the same. What is our shout out game gonna be?
Oh yeah. We probably should have thought more of it.
Do
you want to shout out
about that?
the Tool?
Yes, I will.
Type beat that
Tool
was
type
commented
beat.
on our last one.
Yes, on our last episode about cults. Casey, my friend Casey, commented on the Instagram and said "Opiate by Tool" type beat in reference to just like honestly both the cults saying how like you will not like be healed without them or whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, we had not heard the song, but we looked up the lyrics and it is very pertinent to both of those things.
Yeah, and I don't fully remember what the last shout out game was, but thanks for commenting.
Yes, I don't remember what the cult one was, but I did remember what the NWA one was.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I guess for this shout out game, let's tell me what your let's just say favorite. Have I done favorite book yet?
I don't think you have.
If I have, we'll do it again.
Yeah.
Comment your favorite book if you'd like to, and we'll. Who the fuck cares? It's our podcast. We can do what we want. Comment your favorite book. I like reading books, and I want to know what your favorite one is.
Absolutely.
And we'll shout you out on our next episode.
Yeah.
Also, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts if you're so inclined. And if you want to check out some more info about like the incel movement or online fringe groups, you can watch my YouTube channel. I have a few videos on that. It's The Lefty Agenda on YouTube.
And those incel videos on Taylor's YouTube are fucking so good. Every video is so good, but those ones, I was shitting and pissing.
Continuously, it was a mess.
No, it was horrible.
We had to get a mop in there. It was crazy. We're tired.
Yeah, clearly. Good thing
We're
we have
tired.
to film another episode. Film?
Wait, yeah.
Somebody put me out of my misery.
We do have to record another episode.
We do.
But we're going to take a little break, and then we'll see y'all later.
On the flippity flop. Okay, love you.
Bye.